are coming on the air with a triple threat of potentially deadly storms affecting 1 in 3 of us, with a dangerous wave of winter weather hitting from the Mountain West to the Atlantic coast. Ice and snow blanketing roads, making driving a nightmare. We're live in Kentucky, right in the heart of these storms. We're also live at the White House, where one of the world's most powerful men has been fielding questions from reporters about his plans to shrink the federal government. And it's not President Trump. Also breaking tonight, an American wrongfully detained in Russia, now on his way home as we speak. The many questions about how exactly Marc Fogel managed to get on that plane and get out. Then, the president's not backing down from his plan to, in his words, take control of Gaza. How the man he's putting pressure on to help is responding. And does inflation insanity have you down? Why a little bit of bling may help you get through some of these rising costs as we break down the gold rush, modern day, later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with a triple threat of dangerous storms with back-to-back-to-back ice and flooding and freezing rain for more than 90 million people from New York to Colorado. You're seeing some of the scenes here. The National Guard deploying in Virginia, where there's a state of emergency. You see this car crash we're about to show you here. The roads are icy, and guess what? In that state alone, some 300 accidents today alone. The snow is getting federal workers sent home early here in D.C. Same for students. With the worst of this storm, with the worst of this Arctic air still to come. In Kentucky, police are now warning people to stay off the roads with 6 inches there and maybe a ½ inch of ice coating the Appalachians. And this is only the start. We're also watching 2 other storms out west. And we've just learned the Pacific Coast Highway is shutting down in Malibu again because of mudslide risk. Then down south, you've got the concern about tornadoes in spots like Louisiana and Mississippi. Some weather experts calling what's happening right now an everything but the kitchen sink kind of storm system. And you know that's what it's looking like from coast to coast. We've got team coverage tonight. Bill Karen standing by with the forecast. Priya Sridhar in Kentucky bracing for a direct hit. But I want to start with Sam Brock, who's live for us here in Washington. Cold weather emergency right now. The snow has been coming down for several hours, but the worst of it is yet to come.
Yeah, that's well phrased, Hallie. You know, certainly at about 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon, we started to notice snow coming down, but none of it was sticking. Look over my shoulder right now. You'll see what appears to be about 1 to 2 inches. And to your point, it's really the rush hour time period that officials are worried about tonight. 6, 7, 8 o'clock, where they're expecting the largest amount of accumulation. Should the D.C. area meet its projections of up to 6 inches of snow, that would mark, I'm told, according to our climate unit, the largest snowfall in the D.C. area in February in about a decade. So that's the concern to lay out for you. So far, I'm looking at the roads over my shoulder. You'll see cars in the distance there that keep driving behind me. The roads themselves right now are clear. We did talk to the Virginia Department of Transportation earlier today, VDOT. They've gone out there 48 hours in advance and pre-treated a lot of these roads with an emphasis certainly on major interstates like 395 and 495, the Beltway, primary roadways. They've been out there for a couple of days doing that with this briny mixture that's 1 part salt and really a lot of water to make sure that once the actual snowfall starts, it's easier to clear it up. Once it reaches 2 inches or more on the roadways, they get those trucks out there with these big mounds of salt, which we got to see firsthand. That is what's likely happening right now. The ripple effects of the storm itself, though, certainly affecting a lot of families, many schools, particularly the suburbs in Virginia and Maryland. Many school systems, really from Alexandria to St. George's County, all of them have dismissed earlier, in many cases have dismissed early. D.C. public schools, for the most part today, have not, but it's a wait-and-see situation for so many parents and administrators. They will not find out whether or not there's going to be school tomorrow until maybe tomorrow morning. Here is one teacher that we spoke with just a little while ago and what she had to say. The kids are all asking for a snow day?
Yeah.
I'm sure their parents probably are not.
Yeah, because then they would have to find other accommodations and all of those things. So be more proactive in letting parents know so that way they can figure that out.
I think, Hallie, one of the tricky parts about this is that for many parents that need to figure out what they're going to do with childcare, how they're going to plan their week, their day, they don't find out until the last minute. And clearly, if this keeps up, look at my head right now. There's probably about a ½ inch of snow just on my hair. I think it's a safe bet that a lot of schools are going to be closing.
I know you used to live in Miami. Do you own a winter hat?
You know, something I do. I just don't like the way that it looks.
Okay.
What are you going to do?
Okay.
I'm going to have to come to terms with that.
All right, Sam Brock, we will send you that along with the Eagle swag from yesterday. Sam, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let me go to Priya Sridhar, who's live for us in Kentucky. And Priya, where you are, crews are trying to get ahead of this thing, right? Especially after what they saw last month. It has been a very difficult 1-2 punch in Kentucky after 6 people were killed back in January, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I did bring a hat, by the way, so I'm a little bit more prepared than Sam. But one of the things that I think it's important to note is that similarly to where Sam is standing, here in Kentucky, they're not usually accustomed to blizzard-like weather. However, we did see 2 back-to-back storm systems just a month ago, which, as you mentioned, actually killed 6 Kentuckians. So there were a lot of lessons learned from that situation that have now been applied to this storm system. And we actually had a winter storm watch that was issued yesterday at 7 p.m. and is extending all the way to 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So this time around, city officials were really trying to be proactive, and they preemptively canceled a lot of the schools today and really encouraged people to stay off the roads if they could. They really wanted to make sure that the crews that were trying to treat the roads would be able to do that, and also that emergency responders would be able to get to the accidents and the emergencies that they need to respond to. Similarly to what Sam was talking about, we also talked to the Lexington Fayette County Roads and Streets Division, and they said that proactively they got 40 dump trucks that could hold about 25 tons of salt each, and they actually had 3,000 tons that were treating about 1,200 miles of roads. And I want you guys to take a look at the video that we're actually just showing right there. This is about 2 hours south of where I'm standing here in Lexington. And in southern parts of the state, instead of the snow that we were seeing here in Lexington, it was actually more of a rain situation, which was obviously causing some floods, as you can see right there. Flood waters coming up to the deck part of someone's house. So that's another situation, Hallie, that we're monitoring extremely closely.
Priya Sridhar live first there in Lexington, where they are bracing for it. Priya, thank you. Let me bring in Bill Cairns. And Bill, this other update we're just getting from out west, literally in the last 15 minutes or so, the PCH in Malibu, that main highway that runs right along the coast, shut down because of the threat of mudslides now, right? Because of that rain coming down in those burn areas after those devastating wildfires. I know you have a real concern. This could be life-threatening.
Yeah, the city of Malibu, they've been issuing permits for residents that's properties burned. And at 5 o'clock today, they're saying no one is going to be, even if you have a permit, no one's going to be allowed back into the area. They're that concerned about the heavy rain coming in and the mudslides that they don't want anyone except emergency responders and engineers in the areas because they're concerned. I mean, what a fire does is it burns everything on the hillsides, the structures, the trees, the bushes. And those trees and bushes have roots that go in the soil. And that's what holds the soil in place on all the mountainsides in Southern California. And when those burn are gone, there's nothing to hold all that mud and soil in place. So when it rains, the whole hillside can come on down. So here's the storm off the coast. It's not moving in yet. Most of it is going to be tomorrow afternoon and evening, central Northern California. Then it arrives in Southern California as we go throughout Thursday, and it will linger through Thursday, maybe even into Friday morning. But this area you see in here, this is what we call a moderate risk. So it goes marginal, slight, moderate, high risk. When we get to the moderate, that means they're fairly confident that life-threatening flash flooding is going to take place. And this does include all of the burn scar areas here. So how much rain are we talking? When we get to like the higher elevations, that's where we're going to make maybe as much as 6 to 10 inches. I mean, that's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
But that's mostly going to be north of L.A. and heading south to Victorville. When we talk about the Eaton fire, that area looks to be maybe as much as 3 to 4 inches. That's still a lot of rain for a hillside that can't hold it. It can't absorb it. Further to the north, we could also have some issues, too. Not where we had burn scars. We could even have flooding issues in central California. So, Hallie, the timing on this would be Thursday and then into Thursday afternoon. That's when the heaviest rain is expected. It's great. We don't have to talk about fire threat anymore in Southern California. They need the rain, but we do not need devastating mudslides to hit areas that survive the fire, because that's right next door to them is the areas at risk.
Bill Cairns, lots to watch in the days ahead. Thank you very much for that. We've got more breaking news here in Washington in just the last hour from the White House, where one of the world's most powerful men fielded questions from reporters in the Oval Office alongside his son. Not President Trump, but Elon Musk, explaining his mission to try to slash the size of the federal government and do things like investigate the net worth of workers relative to their pay. Is that legal? Not clear, at least not right now. But we do know some of the other controversial things the Trump administration has tried to do have been stopped or slowed by the federal courts. You see that list here. number of items, setting up a potential showdown between the executive and judicial branches. Aaron Gilchrist is live for us at the White House. Aaron, what was so interesting to watch in this dynamic was President Trump, it seemed very comfortably turning over the spotlight to Elon Musk in the Oval Office, in the center of power in Washington and in this country.
Very unusual in so many ways, right? Typically, in a setting like this, you have President Trump do all of the talking. And in this case, you saw him more than once defer to Elon Musk to explain what he's been doing. He's had this team at Doge, which is an office inside the White House, not a department or an agency. But he's had this team going into all of the agencies and taking a look around. And we heard him sort of explain what they've been doing. He said that they are being maximally transparent. That was the term that he used in talking about putting information on the Doge website and on the Doge X account, for example, although when you go and look at some of those places, it doesn't necessarily explain in great detail the work that they've been doing. He did, though, talk about things like going into the Treasury Department and looking at payment systems that he believes were not operating in the most effective way in terms of tracking where the money is going in the Treasury Department. He talked about taking a cursory look at Social Security payments and seeing that there were people who are 150 years old receiving Social Security benefits. And so that is really the first time we've gotten any indication of what his team has been finding, really, although some of that is not stuff that we can verify, to be perfectly honest with you. We need to see the receipts, as the saying goes. I do want you to hear a little bit of what Elon Musk had to say, though, about this idea of transparency and conflicts of interest, that questions were asked about him having personal conflicts of interest with his businesses doing business with the federal government while he's doing these searches.
I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop.
So he says that checks and balances are in place and he's not just sort of doing things willy-nilly. And you heard President Trump there, Hallie, seem to back him up.
There's also, when the president did speak, one of the things he was asked about and that he talked about were what we talked about just a moment ago, the courts putting a pause temporarily or in some cases blocking indefinitely some of his policies that he's been wanting to put in place. Let me play that here.
I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer?
Aaron, there had been some concern and there remains some concern among Trump critics that the president is essentially, and his administration, planting the seeds to potentially defy a court order here. What are you hearing on your end from sources?
So we have been hearing about frustration inside the Trump team about the fact that there have been so many challenges in the courts to the executive orders and actions that the president has taken in these last couple of weeks here. At the same time, there are other officials who say that they expected that there would be challenges. They expected they would end up in court. They do express some discomfort with the fact that it's going to have to move slowly through the courts. We heard the president reference that in his remarks tonight, that he wants to abide by court rulings, but he was frustrated that it would mean having to appeal and appeal and appeal potentially all the way up to the Supreme Court, Hallie. And in some of these cases, that is exactly what it appears is going to have to happen. The question becomes, though, when some of these holds are put in place, these temporary restraining orders, for example, will they be followed to the letter of the law? And there have been some instances already where plaintiffs have come back to the courts and said, no, they're not being followed to the letter.
Aaron Gilchrist, live for us there outside the White House. Aaron, thank you. Also tonight, as we speak, an American teacher in Russia who'd been held there for more than 3 years is heading home, set to be back in the U.S. just a few hours from now. You see him here. This is him in the air right now, 63-year-old Marc Fogel. He is now free after what the U.S. describes as a wrongful detention in a Russian prison. That 14-year sentence for drug smuggling after he was found with what he says was marijuana. Matt Bradley is joining us now. Okay, so Fogel is on his way back home. President Trump just a few moments ago suggested he may meet Fogel at the White House later, which is an indication that he'll land near D.C., which I think we know, and then head on, presumably, I think, to Texas, which is typically where these wrongfully held detainees end up for processing, et cetera. What do we know about how he ended up on this plane? There are a lot of questions about this deal, if that's what we can call it.
Yeah, well, as with anything right now going on with the Trump administration, I don't have a lot of answers for you. We have to kind of wait and see. A White House official did tell NBC News that Steve Witkoff's private plane will bring Fogel to D.C., and apparently it's in the air right now. It's going to be arriving at Joint Air Base Andrews, which is near Washington, as you mentioned, and that's going to be around 9 p.m. Eastern, so a couple of hours from now. The official confirmed that Witkoff used his private plane for all of his travel to Russia and back to retrieve Fogel, and apparently the former diplomat and school teacher, as you mentioned, he's in his 60s. He's going to be reuniting with his family as early as tonight. This according to Witkoff and according to the Trump administration. But we don't know, Hallie, the details of those negotiations. That big question you're asking, you know, the big question, of course, is were any Russian prisoners in the U.S. exchanged for Fogel? And if so, who? So Donald Trump was asked that just today. Here's his response.
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed.
So, yeah, Fogel's legal team has harshly criticized the Biden administration for what they described as bureaucratic inaction, and they praised the Trump administration for, quote, taking decisive action to bring Fogel home. Now, you heard from the president himself just there. He said not much to that question about what the Russians gave or what the United States gave in return for Fogel. So we still don't know what went on behind closed doors. All of this was done not only in private, but on private planes like Witkoff. So a lot of this seems to be kind of in the margins. A lot of what we're seeing coming out of the Trump administration now being done by private citizens who have been sort of deputized, like you were talking about just a moment ago, to take drastic action. This is another example.
Matt Bradley, lots more to follow on that front. Matt, thank you very much. President Trump also today at the White House, sitting alongside Jordan's King Abdullah, reiterating his plan for the U.S. to take Gaza, his words, under what he calls U.S. authority.
We will have Gaza.
What is that?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
So what happens to the Palestinians who lived in Gaza? Well, according to President Trump, they would head to Jordan and Egypt. But remember, both Jordan and Egypt essentially declared Mr. Trump's proposal to relocate Palestinians to Arab countries a non-starter. Megan Fitzgerald is joining us now. And to have this conversation face-to-face, as you saw the president there, with the king of Jordan, after both the Jordanians and the Egyptians basically said, wait a second, no, this plan doesn't work for us. It speaks to the moment in the region right now and, in effect, this stalemate over what happens from here.
Absolutely. And, you know, Hallie, as outrageous as some of the things Trump has said sounds to many Arab leaders, they're statements that they have to take seriously and they have to be dealt with. But look, you know, the Arab world is united on several fronts. They believe that the way to peace and stability in the region is through a two-state solution, not a U.S. takeover of Gaza, as Trump has said. And they also want the Palestinians to stay on their own lands. Now, let's unpack that meeting that we saw today with President Trump and King Abdullah. After the meeting ended, King Abdullah took to X to say that in the meeting, he reiterated Jordan's position against the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. He doubled down on a two-state solution. But before that meeting got underway, the two leaders took some time to take questions in the Oval Office. And we saw some give, so to say, from King Abdullah, who was asked about taking in Palestinians. And he responded by saying Jordan could take in some 2,000 children from Gaza and that they would wait to hear what Egypt was willing to offer. So it was an unexpected comment that even seemed to surprise President Trump, who appreciated the offer. But, you know, I mean, the bottom line here is that the president is threatening aid, and both Egypt and Jordan receive a significant amount of money from the United States. So there's a lot on the line for their respective countries. But remember, Jordan is already home to millions of Palestinian refugees that they've taken in over the last several decades, hundreds of thousands of Syrians who fled the civil war. So roughly half of the population in Jordan are Palestinians, and there's tension in Jordan because of that. So there's certainly the possibility that Jordan could see their own domestic conflicts by allowing Gazans into their country. It's complicated. It's not cut and dry. It's not just let's take this. You know, there's a lot to it, a lot of layers, Hallie, as you know.
For sure. Megan Fitzgerald, thank you very much for that update. Back here at home, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, says today it is time to move forward from, in his words, sensational claims that he broke the law. Listen.
But as we have been dragged through this unfortunate prosecution, I never took my eyes off what was important, you and your family's future. And because of that, our city government has never been stronger.
All this is happening after the acting deputy attorney general ordered prosecutors to drop corruption charges against Adams. Why? Well, isn't that the question? The deputy AG says the mayor's indictment limits Adams' ability to cooperate in President Trump's crackdown on immigration and crime, that's why. And Adams himself has seemed to have had a kind of political awakening about President Trump, meeting with him last month, attending his inauguration after that. The question now, could other prominent elected officials facing legal trouble follow a similar playbook? I want to bring in our legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett, who's joining us now. So the plan is to dismiss the charges without prejudice, essentially, which means that they could be refiled. There has been some discussion that perhaps this means that the Trump administration would have leverage over Eric Adams. Do they? Would they?
Well, and I think the reason for that is because, as you so aptly laid out, the top official at DOJ, the top brass there, really made it explicit in that letter late last night, saying that because he's been under investigation at the same time that he's supposed to be so zeroed in on immigration matters, that the mayor has been distracted in some way. And so I think hinging a criminal prosecution on a political policy initiative for the president is what's raising so many questions here. And it's something that has potentially much broader application than just as it relates to Mayor Adams. As obviously the Southern District of New York, Hallie, has a number of high-profile cases right now.
Well, that's right. And do you think that there is a playbook that is being developed here? Could we see others who are facing legal trouble follow suit? I'm thinking of, for example, Bob Menendez of New Jersey, who came out and echoed some of that Trumpian language that we saw after his sentencing.
Well, we certainly know that former Senator Menendez would be all too happy to take a pardon or a commutation of his sentence. He went out just after his sentencing just not that long ago and called it a witch hunt, blamed the former U.S. attorney, I should say, following in similar language as the president. Now, we haven't heard much from President Trump about Menendez's case, but it's not just Menendez. You think about people like Sean Diddy Combs, right? That office covers a lot of territory and a lot of people in power who I'm sure would be trying to angle for similar treatment as Mayor Adams, if they can get it, Hallie. And that's the question, is what do they have to do to get that treatment?
Laura Jarrett, thank you very much. On Capitol Hill, the new reaction tonight from that startling, nearly hour-long speech by Congresswoman Nancy Mace on the House floor, accusing 4 men of rape, sex trafficking, and other sex crimes against her and other female victims. The South Carolina Republican sharing very graphic details of these alleged attacks, saying her ex-fiancé gave her access to his phone in November 2023. Mace said the phone included videos of, in her words, incapacitated women, including herself. Mace said she had no idea if she was even breathing in the videos.
Abuse doesn't care if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat. We're talking about rape, non-consensual photos, non-consensual videos of women and underage girls.
In statements to NBC News, the 4 men all deny Mace's allegations, one calling them categorically untrue, another saying her claims are a dangerous mix of falsehoods and baseless accusations, with at least one saying he intends to fight this in court. I want to bring in Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill for us. This was, in many ways, a stunning speech, unexpectedly happening last night on the House floor. Can you walk us through what else Mace laid out here?
Yeah, this is not traditionally how members of Congress would use the time that they have on the floor of the House of Representatives. But Nancy Mace spent almost 50 minutes detailing these very startling allegations against her ex-fiancé and a group of other men that she say were part of this scheme. She specifically said that her ex-fiancé was someone that violated not only her, but other women and girls. And she said she discovered this all when she got a look inside his phone. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I still have the mark that Patrick Bryant made on me the night that he assaulted me. Rather than see this mark as a scar, I see this mark of a free woman, free from a monster.
Now, what Mace didn't do is provide much specific evidence to back up a lot of these claims. And as we've already pointed out, all 4 men she made these accusations about are denying all of her claims, specifically her ex-fiancé, who she specifically mentioned in that soundbite we played, Patrick Bryan. He says, I categorically deny these allegations. I take this matter seriously and will cooperate fully with any necessary legal processes to clear my name. And that last line is important because of the four men, Bryan is the only one that is currently actively under investigation by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. And they put out a statement as well saying that he is the subject of this investigation, that they've conducted multiple interviews, served multiple search warrants, and they have a documented case file that will be available upon the release of the conclusion of the case. But they go on to say it's an active and ongoing investigation that is complex and has multiple lawyers. And Hallie, at this point, no one, including Patrick Bryan, have been charged in this case.
And this is also something that Mace has brought up here, right? Because she has pointed to the Attorney General in South Carolina, who is a Republican here, saying that he is not taking her allegations seriously.
Yeah, and this is kind of an interesting addition to the claims that she made on the House floor last night. Listen to what she says about the Attorney General and his role in this case.
If Alan Wilson won't do his job as Attorney General, I will do it for him. I am duty-bound to protect and find every single female victim out there. And I will do it. I will do it single-handedly if I have to.
Now, the Attorney General in this case, Alan Wilson, categorically denies that he was not involved or didn't do enough to deal with this situation. He said that Ms. Mace either does not understand or is purposefully mischaracterizing the role of the Attorney General. At this time, our office has not received any reports or requests for assistance from any law enforcement or prosecution agencies regarding these matters. And I just actually wrapped up an interview with the Attorney General. It'll be a part of our piece tonight for NBC Nightly News. And he told me that he's never had any conversation with Nancy Mace about this. And if he were to have had a conversation with her, he would have referred it to law enforcement first. And it's not his place to be involved in it at this stage of the investigation, Hallie.
Of course, the two of them may come face to face in a political context down the road, right? Because it's widely speculated that perhaps Mace, perhaps he may end up running against each other for South Carolina governor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They are both the leading candidates in the Republican primary for that race, which is coming up in 2026. So this could be a backdrop against that race. And of course, it's a Republican state. So the winner of that primary would be well on their way to becoming the next governor of South Carolina.
Ryan Nobles live for us on Capitol Hill tonight. We'll look for more of your reporting on Nightly News in just a little bit. Ryan, thank you. Coming up here on this show, another deadly airplane incident, this time involving a plane belonging to a frontman from Motley Crue. The new details we're learning just tonight. Plus, a measles outbreak in Texas, what patients have in common beyond the measles themselves. The NTSB now looking into the deadly moment that a business jet belonging to Motley Crue's frontman crashed into a parked plane at an airport in Arizona. I want to show you some of the video here of the moment this crash happened. Here it is. You see the moment that the jet kind of skids down the runway in Scottsdale. There it goes. Eventually, it kind of veers away. You're about to see it. Hang on. So it's coming down, veers away, and then crashes, boom, right into that other plane that was parked on a ramp. It is scary to see. First responders found one person dead when they arrived on scene. Scottsdale's fire captain says 4 others were hurt, including 2 people taken to the hospital in critical condition. Now, Vince Neil of Motley Crue was not on board. Again, one of the planes did apparently belong to him. And this crash now, just the latest in a series of aviation incidents in the last couple weeks that may have people on edge. Of course, there was that horrific collision involving a commercial plane over the Potomac that killed all 67 people on board. A couple days later, 7 people died after a plane crash near a Philly mall. And 10 people died last week after a plane crash in Alaska. Dana Griffin is following the story for us from Scottsdale. We were on the air last night when we first started getting word of what happened in Arizona, Dana, as breaking news on this show. But now we're learning more details, including that the arriving plane had a kind of perhaps landing gear malfunction, according to the airport. What do we know?
Yeah, according to officials, there was some sort of left main landing gear that malfunctioned, and we actually saw that gear in video sitting on the runway. I want to zoom into the planes that are still sitting here at the Scottsdale airport. They're in the distance, and you can kind of make out some of the details here. So to the right, you've got that larger Gulfstream. That was the jet that was already parked here. And then to the left, that is Vince Neal's plane. And you can see it is ripped to shreds. You can see just all the innards inside that plane. It just shows how violent of a crash this was. Now, we know that 4 people were on that plane. 1 person was on the Gulfstream. And actually, Motley Crue issued a statement via their social media, and I want to be part of that. They said there were 2 people on board, including 2 pilots and 2 passengers. We later found out from a now a since deleted post that it was Neal's girlfriend, Rain, plus another friend. And even frontman for Poison, Bret Michaels, he posted on his Facebook saying he was sending prayers and condolences to Rain and all those who were hurt, and also the person who died in this crash. Officials have not officially released the name of that person. I also want to point out that in this statement, it goes on to say Mr. Neal's thoughts and prayers go out to everyone involved, and he is grateful for the critical aid of all the first responders. Hallie.
Dana Griffin right there at the airport for us in Scottsdale. Dana, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, health officials in Texas reporting 24 measles cases in one small county that has one of the highest rates of vaccine exemptions in the state. 9 people are in the hospital. All of the cases happened in folks who were not vaccinated. Remember, measles is super contagious. Number 2, the FDA says there's a voluntary recall now for some canned tuna sold nationwide at Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Costco. There's a problem with the pull tab, you know, the thing you're looking at there, that can lead to potentially deadly botulism. That's food poisoning. Nobody's gotten sick yet, at least nobody that's reported it, but the FDA says the recall was made out of an abundance of caution. Even if you don't think it looks bad, just toss it. Number 3, CEO Sam Altman says OpenAI is not for sale, talking at that AI summit in Paris, less than 24 hours after a group led by Elon Musk offered nearly $100 billion for the nonprofit that controls OpenAI. Altman says Musk is trying to slow down a competitor. The two have been feuding now for a while. Number 4, the transportation secretary says the FAA is renaming pilot safety messages Notice to Airmen. During the Biden administration, that had been changed to Notice to Air Missions, saying that was, in their words, more inclusive of all aviators. Number 5, Duolingo saying goodbye to their owl logo today. The company says the owl, the company says the owl died while waiting for you to do your lesson. What happened? What happened to the owl? Everybody loves the owl. Are we still going to see the mascot on TikTok? I don't know. The spokesperson for the company, of course, responded to our request for comment. You know we asked for comment. They said that they are going to have us all keep an eye on their socials. Is this just one big marketing campaign? Probably. But now you know. Also tonight, the head of the Fed says the fight against inflation is not over. Yikes. Listen to this.
We want to make more progress on inflation, and we think our policy rate is in a good place, and we don't see any reason to be in a hurry to reduce it further.
I mean, you don't have to read between the lines so much, with Jay Powell basically suggesting interest rates are not going down anytime soon, meaning your mortgages, new mortgages, car loans, new loans, et cetera, that's going to kind of stay where it is, it seems, for now. At play here, a lot of economic uncertainty, partly because of President Trump's aggressive tariff plans. All of it pushing some investors towards a new shiny object, a new old shiny object, gold, raising its value to record highs. NBC's Kathy Park has more in the breakdown.
Lately, it seems all that glitters is gold.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket.
The price of the precious yellow metal on the rise.
It's all-time high.
So, are we seeing a modern-day gold rush?
An epidemic hit the nation. Gold fever.
Here in the States and around the globe, the price of gold is going up to record highs. Today, just under $3,000 an ounce, accelerated by President Trump's win in November.
Gold prices are up almost 35%.
Now, they're continuing to skyrocket after the president followed through on his ambitious tariff policies on China and now on all aluminum and steel imports, raising fears of a serious trade war.
If they charge us, we charge them.
Traders see it as a long-term hedge against the president's potentially destabilizing policies. And suddenly, some of that sentimental gold jewelry around the house has a new shine. Maybe it's validation of those spontaneous gold purchases at Costco.
Costco's gold bars are now bringing in as much as $200 million a month.
The big box store getting into the precious metal business, selling bars for around $2,000 back in December 2023. Now, those same bars worth nearly $3,000. So, is it time to cash in or hold your gold?
If you think things are going to stay at this level of volatility or get more volatile, then I would be keeping grandma's rings in your pocket for as long as possible.
With some analysts saying the price still hasn't hit a ceiling.
I think gold can continue to go higher.
In my opinion, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
If you're like Nellie, or we're just inspired by the telly,
avoid disappointment and future regret. Call now.
For now, those investments are worth their weight in, well, gold. Kathy Park, NBC News.
We're hearing tonight from a man who says he had a run-in with the same woman charged in connection with the death of a sports reporter in New Orleans, telling NBC News exclusively that Danette Colbert drugged him, robbed him, and left him for dead 3 years ago. She was convicted but released on probation just a few months ago. Now she's back behind bars over the death of someone named Adan Manzano, a Telemundo journalist, found dead in his hotel room. Police charged Colbert with a number of crimes, including bank fraud and robbery, after she was found with Manzano's phone and some of his other stuff. NBC's Rahima Ellis is joining us now with more. It is just some scary details here. Walk us through what we know about this reporter's death and how this woman may have been involved.
Well, it was the assignment of a lifetime for Manzano, a young reporter for Telemundo in Kansas, assigned to cover the Super Bowl down in New Orleans. But he was found unresponsive in a hotel room, and the cause of death is not known. But here's what we do know. As you reported, it was mentioned that this 49-year-old Danette Colbert was in custody right now after she was spotted on surveillance camera moments before they were entering the hotel and just hours before he was found dead. Police say that she was the last person seen with Manzano before his death. And during a search of her home, as you point out, they found his credit card, his cell phone, narcotics. And they found firearms, which they do not believe were connected with his death. According to police, she had also used his credit card at several stores in New Orleans. And now on Monday, police say that there are multiple electronic devices that were connected to the case that have also been seized, and they're undergoing forensic examinations. We have to tell you, the sad part of this case, too, is Manzano's wife was killed last year in a car accident, and he was raising their young daughter alone. Hallie?
Telemundo, of course, the parent company, part of the parent company here at Comcast, Rahima. What about this other individual who says that he was drugged and robbed by this same suspect? What do we know about that situation?
We know that he is 52 years old. His name is David Butler, and he says it was 3 years ago that he was down in New Orleans doing work, and he came in contact with this woman and another woman. They invited him to drinks. He went along. When he stepped away from the table, he came back and picked up his drink, and he became very woozy, dizzy, disoriented. They suggested that they would help get him home. Once he got there, he said he didn't know what was happening to him, and he woke up hours later disoriented. Next thing he knows, his wallet and his materials were gone, and police were able to trace those items to this woman who is now in custody. In an impact statement that he gave to the court, which he shared with NBC News exclusively, he had mentioned to the court that he thought this woman was very dangerous and she never should have been let out on charges. We should mention that we tried to contact the attorneys in both of these cases that Colbert is connected with, and there was no comment from the attorneys. We also didn't get comment from the district attorney's office handling this case. Hallie?
Rahima Ellis, thank you very much for that reporting, Rahima. Appreciate that. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, Republicans in the Texas Senate introducing bills that would require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in public schools and would also let schools set aside time for students to read the Bible. There was a push to get something similar to this passed a few years ago, but it failed just because of time constraints. Remember, last year, Louisiana became the first state to require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in all public school and public college classrooms. Out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this. A guy walking onto the ice Ready? Shove, shove, pushing 2 teenage hockey refs in Seattle. It's like a youth game. Police say he claims he went on the ice to defend his son and break up a fight. He's been suspended from any USA Hockey activity and could even face misdemeanor charges. Out of our Midwest Bureau, students in a district outside Joliet, Illinois, have been forced to learn remotely today and tomorrow after police say thieves stole the catalytic converters from like 80% of the school buses in the district. Police released a photograph of a dark-colored SUV from the night the stuff was stolen. So now the school's got to borrow buses from other districts to be able to get the kids back to the classroom. Just a messy situation there. Still ahead, President Trump says our neighbors to the north should be the 51st state. Why some Canadians are laughing it off while others seem to be preparing for possible war? Question mark. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's that discussion over what should happen to Palestinians in Gaza, with President Trump reiterating his push to take over the Gaza Strip and relocate Palestinians elsewhere. Remember, as a candidate, Donald Trump carried the majority of Arab American voters in Dearborn, Michigan in November, something that helped him win other parts of the country, too. So how are some of those voters feeling now? Here's Yasmin Vasukian.
President Trump doubling down on his plan to own the Gaza Strip during a press conference alongside Jordan's King Abdullah.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace.
And when asked about whether the president's Arab supporters would be happy with his decision to occupy Gaza, Trump responded, citing his support in Michigan during the election.
Well, you know, if you look at Michigan, where we have a large Arab population, as you know, I was just telling the king that we won. As you know, I won the Arab population.
And he's right. He did. In Dearborn, Trump edged out Kamala Harris by 2,500 votes. So we reached out to some Arab voters who either cast their ballot for the president or for a third party, which is also seen as a vote for Trump. Sam Fawaz, a Lebanese American in Michigan, campaigned for Trump and does not regret his vote in spite of Trump's claims to take over Gaza.
Everything is transactional to him. You know, that's what he's known for. If anything he's proven is he doesn't like to see the killing and death and destruction of innocent civilians. That's become, it should be obviously clear to everyone. I always tell family and friends that voted for him recently, I tell them to give me an alternative to President Trump. Would have been a continuation of the Biden administration through Vice President Harris. I don't think the bloodshed would have stopped, and I don't think the death and destruction would have abated. And I think the long-term goal of the region would have been on the same track.
Samra Luchman, who's also an Arab American voter, cast her ballot for Trump, and she stands by it.
We have a ceasefire. I stand by my vote. We have gotten a pause in the killing of the people, and that's paramount to me.
But she's not happy with Trump's rhetoric and taking over Gaza.
I'm angered by them, and I'm also fearful for the people there. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we have seen a march of return. We've seen Palestinians be able to go back to Gaza. That would not have happened had we had Biden or Harris still in office.
We also caught up with an Arab Michigan voter who voted for Jill Stein. We interviewed Farah Khan before the election, and she told us she was voting third party. Here's what she told us back in August after Harris's speech at the DNC.
You are bombing our families with our money, and just one good speech is going to win us over again? I don't think so.
She took a risk and does not regret it, even though she is deeply upset with Trump's rhetoric, but says she plans to organize against Trump the way she organized against Harris if he goes forward with his plan to occupy Gaza.
We are not going anywhere. They have seen what we did to Harris administration. We are going to organize as powerfully as we did for the Harris administration. If they don't if they don't change their path, if they're going to go down that path, then we are not going anywhere.
We did speak to a few other Arab American voters as well, who voted for the president and say they now regret their vote, but were unwilling to say it on camera. A reflection of the power of the vote. Yasmin Vasugian, NBC News.
So you know the whole thing that people say sometimes, take President Trump seriously and literally? Well, Canada is, as the president makes moves that could make trade harder for our neighbors to the north and muses publicly about making Canada part of America. Now, Canadians fighting back, not literally, but seriously. Erin McLaughlin explains.
Canadians are getting fired up and fed up with what they're hearing from the U.S. Talk of war on social media.
America doesn't know the same thing that Canada is hearing.
Did you vote to go to war, like actual war with Canada?
You've been a real star-spangled pain in my ass, but at least you're bringing Canadians together.
After President Trump confirms he's not messing around.
Is it a real thing? Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state.
Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau isn't laughing off the 51st state talk, taking it far more seriously when he thinks the cameras are off, caught on a hot mic.
Mr. Trump has it in mind that one of the easiest ways of doing that is absorbing our country. And it is a real thing. In my conversation with him.
Even though publicly he's focusing on the tariff threat.
We should be doing more together, not fighting with each other, but Canadians will stand up strongly and firmly if we need to.
Canadians are listening and acting, from small acts of protest like booing the Stars and Stripes from their sports to ours. Talk of boycotting U.S. goods.
We've had an insane couple of weeks. Canadians are putting their money where their mouths are.
At the Province of Canada store in Toronto, owner Julie Brown tells me people aren't fans of this rhetoric from the president.
When you hear the U.S. president talking about Canada as the 51st state, how does that make you feel?
I don't like it. I don't think any Canadians like it. I think we're very happy in Canada. We're very happy with how things are run here, and we have no interest in that.
Potentially even a political impact, because while there's no specific numbers testing how Canadians feel about the U.S. right now, polls suggest a shift after the unpopular Trudeau's announcement.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader.
And Trump's inauguration, swinging away from the rival Conservative Party back to the Liberals over the last month, ahead of October's election. Because even as the president's top advisors try to bring down the temperature to our own Kristen Welker.
Is he planning to annex part Canada? Of his policy. Well, I don't think there's any plans to invade Canada, if that's what you're talking about.
Up north, the fear is real and just heating up.
Erin McLaughlin is joining us now. We just saw you in that trip to Toronto, Erin, and I wonder what you're hearing from experts on the political ramifications of some of what is now a new tension between the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, well, Hallie, this has all amounted to a political earthquake in Canada. You know, prior to President Trump's inauguration and this tariff talk, the upcoming general election in Canada was really looking like it was going to be a referendum against Prime Minister Trudeau. Now, fast forward through this tariffs, through the talk of annexation, and this is all about who can stand up to President Trump, who can push back on these tariffs. I was out on the campaign trail with the Premier of Ontario, the progressive conservative Doug Ford, and he was telling me openly that he had to do this U-turn, that prior to the inauguration he was 100% Trump. Now he's forced to be hitting back. Today, where is he? He's in Washington, D.C., talking tariffs with Washington officials.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, the Beehive buzzing over tickets for Beyonce's latest tour, on sale starting today. Why no news may be good news this time around. Next. So it is a case of no news is good news tonight for everybody who is bracing for a possible Ticketmaster melty, with Beyonce's new tour going on pre-sale today, and the whole Taylor Swift debacle still fresh in the minds of many. But for this first round for Cowboy Carter, so far, smooth sailing. Tour kicks off in L.A. in April, one of 8 cities Beyonce will be in this summer. Let's get to Chloe Malas now for more. Okay, Chloe, so let's talk about this, because I know in this scramble to get tickets, there were some folks who were flashing back to the whole Taylor Swift Ticketmaster meltdown. How did Ticketmaster manage to avoid something like that from happening again?
Because, you know, they learned from the past, Hallie. It wasn't just Taylor Swift. It was also the Oasis debacle that you saw take over social media. They really made sure to have the proper bandwidth. And they even put out a statement today saying, if you're having problems online, here are some tips of what to do that I thought was actually pretty cool of them. They said just have one tab open, don't use a VPN. But there were still some people complaining, saying, I got to the front of the line, I waited for hours, and the ticket prices are astronomical, or my computer froze. So it wasn't easy for everybody. It looks like it was still slightly glitchy, but nothing that Ticketmaster is willing to take ownership for.
The Beyonce level interest, right? I mean, it is huge. We're talking about a monster tour here. It's, I think we mentioned, right, 9 stops essentially. What's the thinking behind how successful this tour may end up being? If you haven't got tickets yet, can you still get them? What's the deal?
So her last tour, Renaissance, did hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. This woman is a powerhouse. I mean, she truly has the Midas touch, and they're rolling it out perfectly. So each day this week, there are these pre-sales for those that are a part of the Bay Hive, which is like the name for the most devoted of Beyonce fans. And then the rest of the public can try on Valentine's Day to get a ticket. But again, she just added a couple more dates, which makes me think that she knew she was going to add those 2 extra dates in London. She knew that the demand was going to be high. And, you know, it's also a rather limited run here. I mean, she has 27 concert dates, and she kicks off in April in Los Angeles. She'll make her way around the United States. She'll go to places like Chicago, her hometown of Houston. She'll go to New Jersey. I'm shocked that she's not going to be playing at the Barclays Center here in New York and Brooklyn, or MSG in Manhattan. But then she does go overseas, where, like I said, she'll be in London, she'll be in Paris, and then she wraps everything up in July, on July 13th, in the Dirty South in Atlanta. So I'm telling you, it's going to go so fast. And obviously the resale tickets, Hallie, like we've talked about over the last few months with other concerts, thousands of dollars, I'm sure, with these ticket scalpers and also websites like StubHub.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that again as the tour date gets closer. Chloe Malas, thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with a triple threat of potentially deadly storms affecting 1 in 3 of us, with a dangerous wave of winter weather hitting from the Mountain West to the Atlantic coast. Ice and snow blanketing roads, making driving a nightmare. We're live in Kentucky, right in the heart of these storms. We're also live at the White House, where one of the world's most powerful men has been fielding questions from reporters about his plans to shrink the federal government. And it's not President Trump. Also breaking tonight, an American wrongfully detained in Russia, now on his way home as we speak. The many questions about how exactly Marc Fogel managed to get on that plane and get out. Then, the president's not backing down from his plan to, in his words, take control of Gaza. How the man he's putting pressure on to help is responding. And does inflation insanity have you down? Why a little bit of bling may help you get through some of these rising costs as we break down the gold rush, modern day, later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with a triple threat of dangerous storms with back-to-back ice and flooding and freezing rain for more than 90 million people from New York to Colorado. You are looking at just some of the images here. We know that in just the last couple of minutes, a ground stop has been ordered up at Baltimore at the airport there. The National Guard is deploying just south of us in Virginia, where there's a state of emergency. Already have seen multiple car crashes there. 300 plus, to be specific. This is just one of them there. Just since midnight here, the snow is getting federal workers sent home early in D.C., same for some students, with the worst of this potentially dangerous storm still to come. In Kentucky, police are now warning people stay off the roads, with 6 inches already in that state and maybe a ½ inch of ice set to coat the Appalachians. We're also watching 2 other storms out west. And now we're learning an evacuation order in place for parts of Santa Barbara, literally in just the last couple of minutes. The Pacific Coast Highway is shutting down in Malibu again. Why? Mudslide risks. They're getting a lot of rain right on top of those burn scars from those devastating wildfires not long ago. Down south, they are not immune. They've got the risk of things like tornadoes in Louisiana and Mississippi. And if you're thinking, man, this is everything but the kitchen sink. No, but really, that's what weather experts are calling it. They describe it as an everything but the kitchen sink kind of storm system. We've got team coverage tonight. Bill Cairns has the forecast. Priya Shrithar is in Kentucky, bracing for a direct hit right now. But I want to start with Sam Brock, who is live for us in D.C. And Sam, ground stop in Baltimore, hundreds of car crashes in Virginia. It is messy already, and it's only going to get worse as we see the rush hour and nightfall here.
Exactly. It's a perfect sort of coinciding, Hallie, of the timing of this storm and what people are doing then, which is trying to get back from work, no doubt. As I talk to you right now, only an hour ago when we spoke, it was maybe an inch or so of snow on the ground behind me. Now look at it, right? It's several inches, huge discrepancy just in the last hour, really speaking to the fact that we're seeing such a density of snowfall at this hour right now. And you'll also notice the roads over my shoulder there, you're seeing sparse amounts of cars. An hour ago, people were still driving much less at this point. In fact, the most likely thing you're going to see are plow trucks that are out there. Here's an important point to make, too, specifically as it pertains to D.C. You have so many essential personnel, Hallie, people that work in the military or police or some government capacity that have to go back and forth from work, regardless or irrespective of the weather conditions. So that's why it's so important that the roads are as safe as they can possibly be. Earlier today, we got a chance to tag along with the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT, and see sort of how the sausage is made. You're looking at all of that salt that was pouring out of their depot there. You're talking about tens of thousands of tons of salt. Also, VDOT officials were out there pre-treating the roads with this briny mixture that makes it safer so that when they do come out in the midst of the storm, they can clear a lot of that out of the way. Here's just a sense of the scope of what we're talking about. In one district in Northern Virginia, a sample of our conversation earlier today with a spokesperson for VDOT. Take a listen.
So for this, we will have 2,700 trucks out in just the 4 counties in Northern Virginia, and that is to treat the roads, plow the roads where possible, put sand down for traction if needed. It's really a whole operation, as you can see behind you, with all of the different kinds of equipment that we use.
One of the latest updates that we have from the city here in D.C. is that they've shut down access to all public libraries for the rest of the night. I mean, you'd think that would probably be a given. Many school districts in the outlying areas of Virginia and Maryland, really all over, there's huge population concentrations in Fairfax County, for example, have dismissed early today. We have not gotten word yet, though, from D.C. public schools that they've actually canceled a class for tomorrow. But that seems like a very strong likelihood, Hallie, given the conditions that I'm looking at right now.
It is just so messy. It's definitely one of those nights where it's good to have a winter hat on, huh, Sam?
I find it comes in really handy, especially if there's no sports logo like the Eagles on there. Keep it nice and neutral. That's my opinion anyway.
Sam Brock, in the thick of it there for us in Washington. I would say it's good to see you, Sam. It always is. Thank you. Let's go to Priya Sridhar, who's live for us now in Kentucky. And Priya, we've got some dramatic video coming into us. It's not just snow in Kentucky, but flooding, right? Water, too, from the rain that's been coming down. The threat to Kentucky is serious, and they are bracing for it where you are.
Yeah, take a look at this video right here. This is about 2 hours south of Lexington, which is where I am right now in Stearns, Kentucky. You can see that the flood waters just around this house has risen to the point that these people are basically standing on their deck and their house is just completely surrounded by this water. And that's actually what we're starting to experience here in Lexington. Several hours ago, earlier this morning, it was starting to look more like what Sam was experiencing over in D.C. We were getting really pretty snow. It was looking a little bit like a winter wonderland. And as you mentioned, Central Kentucky was considered an epicenter of this storm system and was projected to get about 6 inches. The really good news about what happened here in Kentucky is that the temperature never dipped below 30 degrees. So even though you're seeing a little bit of a pretty accumulation around me here on the grass, it never actually accumulated out on the streets, which is what officials were incredibly concerned about when it came to kind of that black ice situation. And you know, Hallie, Kentucky is a place that's not necessarily used to having these big, powerful blizzards. However, just about a month ago, they had 2 back-to-back systems that blanketed the state with about 8 to 10 inches of snow. And actually 6 people in Kentucky tragically died in that storm system. So the officials here in Kentucky really learned from what happened back then. And this time they were much more proactive, closing schools preemptively. And they had their roads and streets divisions here in Lexington and Fayette County sweeping the streets and doing pre-treatment in the overnight hours at like midnight. And they had about 40 dump trucks. They had all hands on deck and 3,000 tons of salt that were treating about 1,200 miles of roads. So given the fact that we're seeing the temperatures where they are right now, it seems like potentially the worst is behind us, but we're still really monitoring those situations in the southern part of the state that's leading to that really intense flooding, Hallie.
Priya Sridhar live for us there in Lexington. Priya, there is a lot going on where you are. More to come for sure. Thank you very much. Let's bring in Bill Cairns. It is not just the flooding and the snow where Priya is. It's the potential for the rain out west, creating major mudslide problems, right? We've now seen in just the last little bit here, Bill, evacuation orders in Santa Barbara. You've got the Pacific Coast Highway shut down in Malibu as well. Talk us through what you're seeing.
Yeah, so the evacuation order was in Santa Barbara County, and it was for the lake fire. And I was like, wait a second. We had the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire, and like the lake fire sounded familiar. That was back in July of this previous summer, and it was a huge fire that lasted about a month. And that's where the evacuation orders are from. They're worried about mud and debris flows. You're likely going to hear new evacuation orders going out in the next 24 hours for areas near the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, and all the other little fires that we've had over the last 6 months or so in California, because this is going to be the heaviest rain event since the summer season. We had a couple little ones right after, about 2 weeks after, the devastating fires that, down near Malibu, which you're looking at right here. But this is, easily double or triple the rainfall forecast from those. So let's get into the forecast. We're not seeing the rain coming in today or tonight. Tomorrow it begins to come in, but it's really on Thursday that's the peak of it. And our Storm Prediction Center and the Weather Prediction Center, they have categories to let you know how serious the flood threat's going to be. And it starts at marginal, then it goes to a slight risk, then it goes to a moderate, and it goes to a high risk. Right now we're in this moderate risk here for areas outside of Los Angeles, the mountains just north of L.A., all the way back through Malibu and towards Santa Barbara. And this could even be upgraded to a high risk tomorrow, possibly. That means they're almost positive that we're going to have debris flows and mudslides. They already have put all the protection barriers up. They know they're going to get these slides. They want to steer them away from other houses. We don't want new destruction to take place. And the reason they're so concerned is where you see the orange here, that's 2 inches. The darker color is 3 inches. So that's widespread, 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. And these are on hillsides that are just mud. I mean, there's no trees left. There's no bushes left. So the roots can't hold that soil in place. And some higher elevation, the San Luis Mountains, they're even saying 6 to 10 inches of rain is possible. I mean, that would be flooding if it wasn't for the fires.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
So that's really significant stuff. We will get, some rain. There is a little bit of a flood threat up to central California. There weren't as many fires in this area, so we're not worried about as many mud and debris flows. And we will get that snow at the highest of elevations that you expect, maybe 2 to 3 feet. So it's all good. We need the snowpack. We need the water. But this could be devastating for, imagine Hallie, you survived the fires and you're one of the lucky ones nearby. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have this threat that could take out your house or neighborhood.
You can tell, you have to imagine people very much on edge in that part of the country, in that part of California.
And just to evacuate again, all of a sudden, you went through these fires, the evacuations, and now you got to do it all over again. It's going to be painful.
Yeah, it's a mess for sure. Bill Cairns, more to watch. I know we'll be talking again tomorrow for what may be kind of the second wave of this system here in D.C. and beyond, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Midwest is Chicago. We haven't forgotten about you, St. Louis and Kansas City. Yeah. Tomorrow we'll be talking more about you.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We've also got some developing news from here in Washington on the politics front in the last couple of hours from the White House, where one of the world's most powerful men fielded questions from reporters in the Oval Office alongside his son. No, not President Trump. Elon Musk, you see him there, explaining his mission to slash the size of the federal government. And in just the last literally 10 minutes, we're getting the text of an executive order to do just that. It's all about DOGE, right? This sort of thing that Elon Musk is heading that's under the White House umbrella. We know that the president has been running into some roadblocks from the federal courts, with some of his plans stopped or slowed by judges and setting up a potential slowdown, or showdown, too, between the executive and judicial branches. Aaron Gilchrist is live for us at the White House. Okay, so this EO has just come in, this DOGE executive order that describes exactly how Elon Musk plans to shrink the federal workforce here, basically by hiring only one federal employee for every 4 who leave. And make no mistake, they have been trying to get federal employees to leave. That was something they talked about on the campaign trail, too, Elon Musk and President Trump here, right?
Yeah, you're right. And this executive order goes as far as telling agency heads secretaries, directors, administrators, things of that sort, that they need to now start working with members of the Doge team, of Elon Musk's team, to come up with plans to shrink their workforces, basically. We know that this buyout program that was offered by the administration early on has been on pause by way of the courts as they're reviewing that executive order in particular. And now we've got this new order that is really empowering Doge to go into all of these agencies and start looking at the numbers of people who are working there and whether that's necessary. There's also a part of this executive order that talks about consolidating potentially agencies or components of agencies or entire agencies or getting rid of them altogether. So these are all things that now the president has set in motion to start having the administration examine. You're looking at some images from inside the Oval Office about an hour or so ago, where we saw President Trump and Elon Musk together answering questions from reporters, most of the answers coming from Elon Musk about the work that he's been doing. He said that people voted for major government reform, and that's what he and his team have set out to do, to identify extreme waste, fraud, and abuse inside different government agencies. He cited a few examples of things that he's seen to this point, inefficiencies with computer systems and record keeping inside the Treasury Department, some other agencies he's looked at where he said that he talked about the retirement systems that are using actual paperwork for people, and that is slowing down retirements from the federal government. I want you to hear a little bit more of what he had to say about the work that he's been doing.
Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical.
And President Trump, there, for his part, did say that he expects that when this is all said and done, Hallie, they will be able to cut $1 trillion in federal spending.
All of this, it's sort of striking to see President Trump there handing over the spotlight to Elon Musk, as he did often, or at least occasionally, on the campaign trail here. And that has drawn criticism, frankly, from some Democrats who have suggested Musk is like the shadow president, et cetera. So far, President Trump seems fairly unbothered, at least publicly, by that line of critique.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And over again, he's sort of brushed off questions that have been put to him about who's sort of in charge. And he's suggested that, not suggested, he said outright that he's the one in charge, that Elon Musk isn't doing anything that he's not authorized him to do. And we've heard other members of the administration brush off the idea that Elon Musk is the person in charge. President Trump obviously signing these executive orders and directing different members of his team to execute on so many of the priorities that he identified on the campaign trail. And he's pointed to Elon Musk as one of those people who's executing those priorities. You think of another person like the border czar, who's been working with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Hallie, to make sure that the mass deportation efforts are being carried out. And so the president is very much saying that he's the one in charge, and his plans are being executed in the way that he wants them to be.
Aaron Gilchrist, live for us there from a snowy Washington, not far from the White House. Aaron, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Also tonight, we are just hearing in the last little bit from the family of an American teacher who's been wrongfully detained in Russia for more than 3 years and who is on his way home. He is on the plane as we speak. The 95-year-old mother of Marc Fogel, this man here, just the last hour, says she did hear from him when he was in prison, but he couldn't tell her much. Watch.
We just didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what his state of mind was, if he was getting up to eat, if he had hot water. We just didn't know anything, and he told us not to ask any questions.
You see Marc Fogel here. He's set to land near Washington just a few hours from now after being freed from what the U.S. describes as a wrongful detention in a Russian prison, a 14-year sentence for drug smuggling after he was found with what he says was marijuana. Matt Bradley is joining us now. Fogel is on his way back home. President Trump just a few moments ago suggested he may meet Fogel at the White House later, which is an indication that he'll land near D.C., which I think we know, and then head on, presumably, I think, to Texas, which is typically where these wrongfully held detainees end up for processing, et cetera. What do we know about how he ended up on this plane? There are a lot of questions about this deal, if that's what we can call it.
Yeah, well, as with anything right now going on with the Trump administration, I don't have a lot of answers for you. We have to kind of wait and see. A White House official did tell NBC News that Steve Witkoff's private plane will bring Fogel to D.C., and apparently it's in the air right now. It's going to be arriving at Joint Air Base Andrews, which is near Washington, as you mentioned, and that's going to be around 9 p.m. Eastern, so a couple of hours from now. The official confirmed that Witkoff used his private plane for all of his travel to Russia and back to retrieve Fogel, and apparently the former diplomat and school teacher, as you mentioned, he's in his 60s. He's going to be reuniting with his family as early as tonight. This according to Witkoff and according to the Trump administration. But we don't know, Hallie, the details of those negotiations. That big question you're asking, you know, the big question, of course, is were any Russian prisoners in the U.S. exchanged for Fogel? And if so, who? So Donald Trump was asked that just today. Here's his response.
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed.
So, yeah, Fogel's legal team has harshly criticized the Biden administration for what they described as bureaucratic inaction, and they praised the Trump administration for, quote, taking decisive action to bring Fogel home. Now, you heard from the president himself just there. He said not much to that question about what the Russians gave or what the United States gave in return for Fogel. So we still don't know what went on behind closed doors. All of this was done not only in private, but on private planes like Witkoff. So a lot of this seems to be kind of in the margins. A lot of what we're seeing coming out of the Trump administration now being done by private citizens who have been sort of deputized, like you were talking about just a moment ago, to take drastic action. This is another example.
Matt Bradley, lots more to follow on that front. Matt, thank you very much. President Trump today reiterating his plan for the U.S. to take Gaza, he says, under what he calls U.S. authority, saying that in the Oval Office, seated next to Jordan's King Abdullah. And what's interesting here is that the president's talking about where those Palestinians, 2 million of them roughly, who live in Gaza would go. He says Jordan and Egypt. But here's the thing. Jordan and Egypt have both essentially declared that all but a non-starter. I want to bring in Megan Fitzgerald, who is joining us now from overseas. And Megan, that is the dynamic at play here. As you saw, the King of Jordan sitting with President Trump here as the president is continuing to push on this plan that has a lot of gaps, to say the least.
Yeah, Hallie, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, as you mentioned, we've heard from many Arab nation leaders who said that that's absolutely a non-starter. I want to get to that in a second because we've also got this fragile ceasefire deal that's on the line here, right? A ceasefire deal that could be on the brink of collapse. I mean, you've got Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said earlier after a 4-hour security cabinet meeting that if the hostages aren't released by this Saturday at noon, the ceasefire will end. So also echoing President Trump, what he said yesterday. Netanyahu said he already instructed the IDF last night to amass forces inside and around Gaza. And if the hostages aren't returned by that deadline, the IDF will resume intensified combat operations until Hamas is decisively defeated. Then, of course, as you mentioned, you've got the meeting between Jordan's King Abdullah and President Trump today. So shortly after that meeting ended, King Abdullah took to X to say that he reiterated to President Trump Jordan's position against the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. He then doubled down on a two-state solution as a means of peace and stability in the Middle East. But before that meeting got underway, the two leaders took some questions from the Oval Office. And that's where we saw King Abdullah, who was asked about taking in Palestinians, say that Jordan could take in some 2,000 children from Gaza and that they would just wait and hear what Egypt had to offer. Certainly unexpected comments that came to even a surprise of President Trump, who appreciated the offer. But, you know, the bottom line here is that the president is threatening aid, and both Egypt and Jordan receive a significant amount of money from the U.S. So there's a lot on the line here for their respective countries and a lot happening right now in a fragile situation in the Middle East. Hallie?
Megan Fitzgerald, lots to follow on that front. Thank you very much for your reporting on that. Let's bring you back here to home, where the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, says it is time to move forward from, in his words, sensational claims that he broke the law. Listen.
As we have been dragged through this unfortunate prosecution, I never took my eyes off what was important: you and your family's future. And because of that, our city government has never been stronger.
That's after the acting deputy attorney general ordered prosecutors, remember, to drop corruption charges against Adams. Why? Well, the deputy AG says the mayor's indictment limits Adams' ability to cooperate in President Trump's crackdown on immigration and crime. And Adams himself has seemed to have had a kind of political awakening around President Trump, meeting with him last month, attending his inauguration after that. The question now, could other prominent elected officials and others facing legal trouble follow a similar playbook? Laura Jarrett is joining us now. So the plan is to dismiss the charges without prejudice, essentially, which means that they could be refiled. There has been some discussion that perhaps this means that the Trump administration would have leverage over Eric Adams. Do they? Would they?
Well, and I think the reason for that is because, as you so aptly laid out, the top official at DOJ, the top brass there, really made it explicit in that letter late last night, saying that because he's been under investigation at the same time that he's supposed to be so zeroed in on immigration matters, that the mayor has been distracted in some way. And so I think hinging a criminal prosecution on a political policy initiative for the president is what's raising so many questions here. And it's something that has potentially much broader application than just as it relates to Mayor Adams. As obviously the Southern District of New York, Hallie, has a number of high-profile cases right now.
Well, that's right. And do you think that there is a playbook that is being developed here? Could we see others who are facing legal trouble follow suit? I'm thinking of, for example, Bob Menendez of New Jersey, who came out and echoed some of that Trumpian language that we saw after his sentencing.
Well, we certainly know that former Senator Menendez would be all too happy to take a pardon or a commutation of his sentence. He went out just after his sentencing just not that long ago and called it a witch hunt, blamed the former U.S. attorney, I should say, following in similar language as the president. Now, we haven't heard much from President Trump about Menendez's case, but it's not just Menendez. You think about people like Sean Diddy Combs, right? That office covers a lot of territory and a lot of people in power who I'm sure would be trying to angle for similar treatment as Mayor Adams, if they can get it, Hallie. And that's the question, is what do they have to do to get that treatment?
Laura Jarrett, thank you very much. Here in Washington, the new reaction tonight from that startling, nearly hour-long speech from Congresswoman Nancy Mace, going on the House floor to accuse 4 men of rape, sex trafficking, and other sex crimes against her and other women victims. The South Carolina Republican sharing very graphic details of the alleged attacks, saying her ex-fiancé gave her access to his phone in November 2023. Mace says the phone included videos of, in her words, incapacitated women, including herself. And the Congresswoman said she had no idea if she was even breathing in these videos.
Abuse doesn't care if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat. We're talking about rape, non-consensual photos, non-consensual videos of women and underage girls.
In statements to NBC News, the 4 men all deny Mace's allegations, one calling them categorically untrue. Another saying her claims are a dangerous mix of falsehoods and baseless accusations, with at least one saying he intends to fight this in court. Ryan Nobles is on Capitol Hill for us. This was, in many ways, a stunning speech, unexpectedly happening last night on the House floor. Can you walk us through what else Mace laid out here?
Yeah, this is not traditionally how members of Congress would use the time that they have on the floor of the House of Representatives. But Nancy Mace spent almost 50 minutes detailing these very startling allegations against her ex-fiancé and a group of other men that she said were part of this scheme. She specifically said that her ex-fiancé was someone that violated not only her, but other women and girls. And she said she discovered this all when she got a look inside his phone. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I still have the mark that Patrick Bryant made on me the night that he assaulted me. Rather than see this mark as a scar, I see this mark of a free woman, free from a monster.
Now, what Mace didn't do is provide much specific evidence to back up a lot of these claims. And as we've already pointed out, all 4 men she made these accusations about are denying all of her claims, specifically her ex-fiancé, who she specifically mentioned in that soundbite we played, Patrick Bryant. He says, I categorically deny these allegations. I take this matter seriously and will cooperate fully with any necessary legal processes to clear my name. And that last line is important because of the four men, Bryant is the only one that is currently actively under investigation by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. And they put out a statement as well saying that he is the subject of this investigation, that they've conducted multiple interviews, served multiple search warrants, and they have a documented case file that will be available upon the release of the conclusion of the case. But they go on to say it's an active and ongoing investigation that is complex and has multiple lawyers. And Hallie, at this point, no one, including Patrick Bryant, have been charged in this case.
And this is also something that Mace has brought up here, right? Because she has pointed to the Attorney General in South Carolina, who is a Republican here, saying that he is not taking her allegations seriously.
Yeah, and this is kind of an interesting addition to the claims that she made on the House floor last night. Listen to what she says about the Attorney General and his role in this case.
If Alan Wilson won't do his job as Attorney General, I will do it for him. I am duty-bound to protect and find every single female victim out there. And I will do it. I will do it single-handedly if I have to.
Now, the Attorney General in this case, Alan Wilson, categorically denies that he was not involved or didn't do enough to deal with this situation. He said that Ms. Mace either does not understand or is purposefully mischaracterizing the role of the Attorney General. At this time, our office has not received any reports or requests for assistance from any law enforcement or prosecution agencies regarding these matters. And I just actually wrapped up an interview with the Attorney General. It'll be a part of our piece tonight for NBC Nightly News. And he told me that he's never had any conversation with Nancy Mace about this. And if he were to have had a conversation with her, he would have referred it to law enforcement first. And it's not his place to be involved in it at this stage of the investigation, Hallie.
Of course, the two of them may come face to face in a political context down the road, right? Because it's widely speculated that perhaps Mace, perhaps he may end up running against each other for South Carolina governor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They are both the leading candidates in the Republican primary for that race, which is coming up in 2026. So this could be a backdrop against that race. And of course, it's a Republican state. So the winner of that primary would be well on their way to becoming the next governor of South Carolina.
Ryan Noble's live for us on Capitol Hill tonight. We'll look for more of your reporting on Nightly News in just a little bit. Ryan, thank you. Coming up later on this show, a former Trump advisor pleading guilty to fraud charges, what Steve Bannon is admitting to tonight. And the price of gold keeps going up. Our breakdown on why metal is having a moment. Tonight, the head of the Fed says the fight against inflation is not over yet. Watch.
We want to make more progress on inflation, and we think our policy rate is in a good place, and we don't see any reason to be in a hurry to reduce it further.
It doesn't take a lot of reading between the lines there. Pretty obvious from Jay Powell that interest rates don't seem to be going down anytime soon, right? Well, that is because there's a lot of economic uncertainty here, in part because of President Trump's aggressive tariff plans, all of it pushing some investors toward a new old shiny object, gold, spiking its value to record highs. NBC's Kathy Park has more in our breakdown.
Lately, it seems all that glitters is gold.
'Cause I've got a golden ticket.
The price of the precious yellow metal on the rise.
It's all-time high.
So, are we seeing a modern-day gold rush?
An epidemic hit the nation. Gold fever.
Here in the States and around the globe, the price of gold is going up to record highs. Today, just under $3,000 an ounce, accelerated by President Trump's win in November.
Gold prices are up almost 35%.
Now, they're continuing to skyrocket after the president followed through on his ambitious tariff policies on China and now on all aluminum and steel imports, raising fears of a serious trade war.
If they charge us, we charge them.
Traders see it as a long-term hedge against the president's potentially destabilizing policies. And suddenly, some of that sentimental gold jewelry around the house has a new shine. Maybe it's validation of those spontaneous gold purchases at Costco.
Costco's gold bars are now bringing in as much as $200 million a month.
The big box store getting into the precious metal business, selling bars for around $2,000 back in December 2023. Now, those same bars worth nearly $3,000. So, is it time to cash in or hold your gold?
If you think things are going to stay at this level of volatility or get more volatile, then I would be keeping grandma's rings in your pocket for as long as possible.
With some analysts saying the price still hasn't hit a ceiling.
I think gold can continue to go higher.
In my opinion, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
If you're like Nellie, or were just inspired by the telly,
avoid disappointment and future regret. Call now.
For now, those investments are worth their weight in, well, gold. Kathy Park, NBC News.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, health officials in Texas are reporting 24 measles cases in one small county, a county that has one of the highest rates of vaccine exemptions in the state. 9 people are in the hospital. All of those cases happened in folks who did not get the shot. Remember, measles is very contagious. Number 2, Trader Joe's confirms to the Associated Press it's only letting customers buy 1 carton of eggs a day. That's because of this egg shortage triggered by the bird flu that's infected a lot of flocks. Maybe you've seen some limits at other grocery stores near you, but it's not clear if other chains are doing like nationwide limits or it's just regional or what. Number 3, a longtime ally of President Trump's pleading guilty to 1 count of fraud, with Steve Bannon admitting to duping donors who gave money to a private effort to build a wall along the southern border during President Trump's first term. The deal means he will not spend any time behind bars. Number 4, the transportation secretary says the FAA is renaming pilot safety messages. They will now be called Notice to Airmen. During the Biden administration, that message changed to Notice to Air Missions, because in their words, it was inclusive of all aviators. Number 5, have you heard about Duolingo? Sad news. They've said goodbye to their owl logo today. They say the owl died while waiting for you to do your lesson. People are sad. We bring you the news, and the news is that people are sad because the Duolingo owl is gone, at least for now. We did our due diligence and reached out to the company for comment. We are a news business, folks. We asked for comment. The company said, keep an eye on the socials. Is this just a big marketing campaign? I mean, probably. Now you know. Coming up here on the show, the Pope taking a stand for the world's migrants, why he says President Trump's deportation plans will not end well. And a woman under arrest for allegedly murdering a New Orleans reporter. Our exclusive sit-down with a different man who says the suspect nearly killed him, too. A former Spanish soccer chief on trial for that now infamous kiss at the Women's World Cup. Why he's telling a court the whole thing was consensual. But first tonight, we are hearing from a man who says he had a run-in with the same woman charged in connection with the death of a sports reporter in New Orleans, telling NBC News exclusively that Danette Colbert drugged him, robbed him, and left him for dead 3 years ago. She was convicted but released on probation just a few months ago. Now, she's back behind bars over the death of Adán Manzano. He's a Telemundo journalist who was found dead in his hotel room. Police charged Colbert with a bunch of crimes, including bank fraud and robbery, after she was found in possession of Manzano's phone and some of his other things. NBC's Rahema Ellis is joining us now. It is just some scary details here. Walk us through what we know about this reporter's death and how this woman may have been involved.
Well, it was the assignment of a lifetime for Manzano, a young reporter for Telemundo in Kansas, assigned to cover the Super Bowl down in New Orleans. But he was found unresponsive in a hotel room, and the cause of death is not known. But here's what we do know. As you reported, it was mentioned that this 49-year-old Danette Colbert was in custody right now after she was spotted on surveillance camera moments before they were entering the hotel and just hours before he was found dead. Police say that she was the last person seen with Manzano before his death. And during a search of her home, as you point out, they found his credit card, his cell phone, narcotics. And they found firearms, which they do not believe were connected with his death. According to police, she had also used his credit card at several stores in New Orleans. And now on Monday, police say that there are multiple electronic devices that were connected to the case that have also been seized, and they're undergoing forensic examinations. We have to tell you, the sad part of this case, too, is Manzano's wife was killed last year in a car accident, and he was raising their young daughter alone. Hallie?
Telemundo, of course, the parent company, part of the parent company here at Comcast, Rahima. What about this other individual who says that he was drugged and robbed by this same suspect? What do we know about that situation?
We know that he is 52 years old. His name is David Butler, and he says it was 3 years ago that he was down in New Orleans doing work, and he came in contact with this woman and another woman. They invited him to drinks. He went along. When he stepped away from the table, he came back and picked up his drink, and he became very woozy, dizzy, disoriented. They suggested that they would help get him home. Once he got there, he said he didn't know what was happening to him, and he woke up hours later disoriented. Next thing he knows, his wallet and his materials were gone, and police were able to trace those items to this woman who is now in custody. In an impact statement that he gave to the court, which he shared with NBC News exclusively, he had mentioned to the court that he thought this woman was very dangerous and she never should have been let out on charges. We should mention that we tried to contact the attorneys in both of these cases that Colbert is connected with, and there was no comment from the attorneys. We also didn't get comment from the district attorney's office handling this case. Hallie?
Rahima Ellis, thank you very much for that reporting, Rahima. Appreciate that. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of France, Vice President J.D. Vance, the American vice president, of course, and his wife met with world leaders today at the Paris AI Summit, talking about their plan to keep the U.S. as an AI leader. Vance warned against what he calls excessive AI regulation. Out of Spain, a former soccer chief there is telling the court today the player he kissed gave him consent. Remember, that's after Luis Rubiales was accused of sexual assault for kissing Jenny Hermoso on the mouth at the 2023 World Cup ceremony. Rubiales denies the charges, while Hermoso insists the kiss was not consensual. The prosecution is looking for more than 2 years of prison time in this case. And from the Vatican, the Pope essentially slamming the Trump administration's plans for mass deportation of migrants, saying it will end badly. Pope Francis addressing the issue in a letter to American bishops, warning that the removal of people because of their legal status deprives them of their inherent dignity. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it is, of course, what is happening in Gaza. What will happen in Gaza as President Trump talks about his plan to relocate Palestinians to surrounding countries in the region. Remember, as a candidate at the time, Donald Trump carried the majority of Arab American voters in Dearborn, Michigan, back on Election Day. That is a move that helped him win in other parts of the country, too. So how are some of those voters feeling now? Here's Yasmin Vasugian.
President Trump doubling down on his plan to own the Gaza Strip during a press conference alongside Jordan's King Abdullah.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace.
And when asked about whether the president's Arab supporters would be happy with his decision to occupy Gaza, Trump responded, citing his support in Michigan during the election.
Well, you know, if you look at Michigan, where we have a large Arab population, as you know, I was just telling the king that we won. As you know, I won the Arab population.
And he's right. He did. In Dearborn, Trump edged out Kamala Harris by 2,500 votes. So we reached out to some Arab voters who either cast their ballot for the president or for a third party, which is also seen as a vote for Trump. Sam Fawaz, a Lebanese American in Michigan, campaigned for Trump and does not regret his vote in spite of Trump's claims to take over Gaza.
Everything is transactional to him. You know, that's what he's known for. If anything he's proven is he doesn't like to see the killing and death and destruction of innocent civilians. That's become, it should be obviously clear to everyone. I always tell family and friends that voted for him recently, I tell them to give me an alternative to President Trump. Would have been a continuation of the Biden administration through Vice President Harris. I don't think the bloodshed would have stopped, and I don't think the death and destruction would have abated. And I think the long-term goal of the region would have been on the same track.
Samra Luchman, who's also an Arab American voter, cast her ballot for Trump, and she stands by it.
We have a ceasefire. I stand by my vote. We have gotten a pause in the killing of the people, and that's paramount to me.
But she's not happy with Trump's rhetoric and taking over Gaza.
I'm angered by them, and I'm also fearful for the people there. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we have seen a march of return. We've seen Palestinians be able to go back to Gaza. That would not have happened had we had Biden or Harris still in office.
We also caught up with an Arab Michigan voter who voted for Jill Stein. We interviewed Farah Khan before the election, and she told us she was voting third party. Here's what she told us back in August after Harris's speech at the DNC.
You are bombing our families with our money, and just one good speech is going to win us over again? I don't think so.
She took a risk and does not regret it, even though she is deeply upset with Trump's rhetoric, but says she plans to organize against Trump the way she organized against Harris if he goes forward with his plan to occupy Gaza.
We are not going anywhere. They have seen what we did to Harris administration. We are going to organize as powerfully as we did for the Harris administration. If they don't if they don't change their path, if they're going to go down that path, then we are not going anywhere.
We did speak to a few other Arab American voters as well, who voted for the president and say they now regret their vote, but were unwilling to say it on camera. A reflection of the power of the vote. Yasmin Vasugian, NBC News.
Still ahead for us on the show, President Trump saying our neighbors to the north should be the 51st state. Why some Canadians are laughing it off, others are most definitely not. Next. So you know the whole thing that people say sometimes take President Trump seriously and literally? Well, Canada is, as the president makes moves that could make trade harder for our neighbors to the north and muses publicly about making Canada part of America. Now, Canadians fighting back, not literally, but seriously. Aaron McLaughlin explains.
Canadians are getting fired up and fed up with what they're hearing from the U.S. Talk of war on social media.
America doesn't know the same thing that Canada is hearing.
Did you vote to go to war, like actual war with Canada?
You've been a real star-spangled pain in my ass, but at least you're bringing Canadians together.
After President Trump confirms he's not messing around.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state.
Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau isn't laughing off the 51st state talk, taking it far more seriously when he thinks the cameras are off, caught on a hot mic.
Mr. Trump has it in mind that one of the easiest ways of doing that is absorbing our country. And it is a real thing in my conversation with him.
Even though publicly he's focusing on the tariff threat.
We should be doing more together, not fighting with each other, but Canadians will stand up strongly and firmly if we need to.
Canadians are listening and acting, from small acts of protest like booing the Stars and Stripes from their sports to ours. Talk of boycotting U.S. goods.
We've had an insane couple of weeks. Canadians are putting their money where their mouths are.
At the Province of Canada store in Toronto, owner Julie Brown tells me people aren't fans of this rhetoric from the president.
When you hear the U.S. president talking about Canada as the 51st state, how does that make you feel?
I don't like it. I don't think any Canadians like it. I think we're very happy in Canada. We're very happy with how things are run here, and we have no interest in that.
Potentially even a political impact, because while there's no specific numbers testing how Canadians feel about the U.S. right now, polls suggest a shift after the unpopular Trudeau's announcement.
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader.
And Trump's inauguration, swinging away from the rival Conservative Party back to the Liberals over the last month, ahead of October's election. Because even as the president's top advisors try to bring down the temperature to our own Kristen Welker,
is he planning to annex
part
Canada?
Of his policy. Well, I don't think there's any plans to invade Canada, if that's what you're talking about.
Up north, the fear is real and just heating up.
Aaron McLaughlin is joining us now. We just saw you in that trip to Toronto, Aaron, and I wonder what you're hearing from experts on the political ramifications of some of what is now a new tension between the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, well, Hallie, this has all amounted to a political earthquake in Canada. You know, prior to President Trump's inauguration and this tariff talk, the upcoming general election in Canada was really looking like it was going to be a referendum against Prime Minister Trudeau. Now, fast forward through this tariffs, through the talk of annexation, and this is all about who can stand up to President Trump, who can push back on these tariffs. I was out on the campaign trail with the Premier of Ontario, the progressive conservative Doug Ford, and he was telling me openly that he had to do this U-turn, that prior to the inauguration he was 100% Trump. Now he's forced to be hitting back. Today, where is he? He's in Washington, D.C., talking tariffs with Washington officials.
Erin McLaughlin, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, the Beehive buzzing over tickets for Beyonce's latest tour on sale starting today. Why no news may be good news this time around. Next. So it is a case of no news is good news tonight for everybody who is bracing for a possible Ticketmaster melty with Beyonce's new tour going on pre-sale today, and the whole Taylor Swift debacle still fresh in the minds of many. But for this first round for Cowboy Carter, so far, smooth sailing. Tour kicks off in L.A. in April, one of 8 cities Beyonce will be in this summer. Let's get to Chloe Malas now for more. Okay, Chloe, so let's talk about this, because I know in the scramble to get tickets, there were some folks who were flashing back to the whole Taylor Swift Ticketmaster meltdown. How did Ticketmaster manage to avoid something like that from happening again?
Because, you know, they learned from the past, Hallie. It wasn't just Taylor Swift. It was also the Oasis debacle that you saw take over social media. They really made sure to have the proper bandwidth. And they even put out a statement today saying, if you're having problems online, here are some tips of what to do that I thought was actually pretty cool of them. They said just have one tab open, don't use a VPN. But there were still some people complaining, saying, I got to the front of the line, I waited for hours, and the ticket prices are astronomical, or my computer froze. So it wasn't easy for everybody. It looks like it was still slightly glitchy, but nothing that Ticketmaster is willing to take ownership for.
The Beyonce level interest, right? I mean, it is huge. We're talking about a monster tour here. It's, I think we mentioned, right, 9 stops essentially. What's the thinking behind how successful this tour may end up being? If you haven't got tickets yet, can you still get them? What's the deal?
So her last tour, Renaissance, did hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. This woman is a powerhouse. I mean, she truly has the Midas touch, and they're rolling it out perfectly. So each day this week, there are these pre-sales for those that are a part of the Beehive, which is like the name for the most devoted of Beyonce fans. And then the rest of the public can try on Valentine's Day to get a ticket. But again, she just added a couple more dates, which makes me think that she knew she was going to add those 2 extra dates in London. She knew that the demand was going to be high. And, you know, it's also a rather limited run here. I mean, she has 27 concert dates, and she kicks off in April in Los Angeles. She'll make her way around the United States. She'll go to places like Chicago, her hometown of Houston. She'll go to New Jersey. I'm shocked that she's not going to be playing at the Barclays Center here in New York and Brooklyn, or MSG in Manhattan. But then she does go overseas, where, like I said, she'll be in London, she'll be in Paris, and then she wraps everything up in July, on July 13th, in the Dirty South in Atlanta. So I'm telling you, it's going to go so fast. And obviously the resale tickets, Hallie, like we've talked about over the last few months with other concerts, thousands of dollars, I'm sure, with these ticket scalpers and also websites like StubHub.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that again as the tour date gets closer. Chloe Malas, thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.